Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Drew Damatka, and welcome to this special August 2017 Geek Out. And the topic is Ready for Next, and coincides with our launch of our new HCI product. To discuss that and the technology behind it is my guest geek today, Justin George. Welcome, Justin.
Thanks, Drew.
Justin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before we kick off?
Yeah, sure thing. So I've come from generally a bit of a software background myself. I've been with NetApp almost 10 years, actually, working in different roles across the business, mainly focused in industries such as telecommunications, media, and more recently, service provider. As a consulting systems engineer, my role is really in pre-sales, to be an advocate and an architect for customers to help them ensure we bring the alliances and solutions to help them solve their data management challenges. So over the last few years, I've been spending a lot of time focusing on building highly scalable service provider clouds. So yeah.
Brilliant. All right. So if we, obviously this topic is quite lengthy, what are we going to be covering today? Because we could go for hours. We've only got an hour, so
yeah.
Can you tell us what you're going to cover?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Drew. So today we're going to talk about the next generation data center. We're going to talk about the NetApp HCI product. We'll give a couple of demos at the end here, talking about the deployment engine and how to get the HCI platform up and running, and then look at what the day one sort of and onwards management platform looks like, and how you actually use it within the vSphere interfaces.
That's fantastic. So if, just for everyone that's listening, this event is recorded, so you can play it back or pass it on to your colleagues at any point in time. Also, we've got a chat session going on, so if you have any questions throughout this Geek Out, please send them through on the chat line. We're going to try and get through as many of them as we can, and if we don't, we will come back to you and answer your question one way or the other. So, Justin, how about we just jump into it, mate? Can you tell us a little bit more about HCI?
Yeah, sure thing. So to answer that question, I'll start in sort of two different ways. Hyperconverged infrastructure, or HCI, is part of our next generation data center portfolio. And so to talk about that, a lot of people ask, what is a next generation data center? And really, it's a data center that sort of operates at the speed of business. It provides applications with data resources in multiple locations, on-premise, in public cloud, or in SaaS applications, for example. And so if we look back over what, a bit of a history lesson, we started out with server consolidation. And that server consolidation sort of took off in the early 2000s as a way of centralizing your data into a location backed by a SAN. And that allowed businesses to gain competitive advantage and use their IT resources more effectively. IT was in a cost-cutting mode. It was .com crash, that sort of thing. So that's why the server consolidation sort of took off from that point. The next sort of phase of that was x86 virtualization. And virtualization was, as everyone knows, taking advantage of underutilized servers and hypervisors to virtualize all those resources. Now that gave a huge amount of business benefits in terms of application provisioning times. They allow businesses to spin up applications that used to take weeks into a couple of hours to connect them all together. So around that same sort of time, public cloud started becoming a very popular theme. And then that, as it took off, sort of set the expectation within businesses of how fast IT resources could be consumed. So, within a couple of minutes, with a swipe of a credit card, you could have access to as many compute cores that you needed. But along with that, that created different business challenges. So, we're kind of somewhere in the middle here where we, you had your data spread across hybrid clouds, public cloud, on-premise data centers. We spent a lot of time, optimizing the hardware to perform, but now we're really looking forward to how we can move to the next level, how we can optimize the management of the software, and how we can be completely software defined to operate everything as a service. So that's really what the next generation data center is.
So would you say that hallmarks of of, I mean, you talk about speed of business and software defined. Would you say that a hallmark of a next generation data center is a programmable infrastructure that's fully automated? Would that be a good way to summarize that?
Yeah, spot on, Drew. That's a key component of what the future looks like over the next sort of 5 years.
All right. Okay. That's great. And so, yeah, please go on, mate.
So, look, I want to do a bit of a history lesson and talk about what HCI kind of is. For those who are unaware, you know, HCI was suitable for, you know, individual workloads with predictable and predefined structures. Now, that meant you can have, you know, removing the complexity of connecting many different components together in a single brick or unit of resources which combined network, compute, and storage. Those building blocks you could then, you know, drop into a remote office to support a small number of workloads or a particular application.
So what would be the driver for that type of adoption? What makes people want to adopt that sort of infrastructure approach as opposed to converged infrastructure or you know, best of breed, something like that?
Yeah, I think it comes down to a couple of things. Time is a big thing, time and resources. Today, you know, having individual teams who are dedicated to storage, network, and server are changing. You know, we don't have as much time as we used to because we have to manage more and more things. And so that's been recognized as an inhibitor for businesses and the speed at which businesses need to work at. Agile and DevOps are themes that have come to you know, come to the enterprise now. You see very large organizations adopting those, and that's really becoming more like how you can more like how you can move your projects to get to market faster to make a competitive difference to your business.
So I think that you talked about remote office. I'd say that one of the things, and I'm looking for you to tell me if you think I'm on the right track here, it does, when you abstract away the complexities of server admin, server management, network management, storage management, would you say that it also changes the skill set of the admin that would actually need to run it? Is that one of the things that go on when you adopt a hyper-converged approach, or
it is.
Can you talk us through that?
So yeah, you know, digital transformation is a key thing that is driving a lot of businesses today, and that, you know, aligned with you know, the lack of time and skill sets available in the market means that you have to be more of a generalist. You have to focus on scratching the surface and focusing on a lot of things and being specialty in a small number of those. So that is also a key fundamental thing of why HCI is becoming really popular.
And this is one, we were talking just before we started, you talked about the hyper-converged currently is really a Mode 1 offering. And can you just talk us through a little bit about what are the, you know, what you see as the challenges with that, you know, a Mode 1 hyper-converged approach?
Yeah, spot on. A lot of customers have been talking to us about, yeah, it's a great architecture, a great idea, great concept, but it works for a small number of applications, or it works at the edge of the network, not in the core. And in the core, there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of reliability requirements, availability, supportability that is required, and that's really where it kind of breaks down the Mode 1 architecture. So NetApp have observed this. We've been looking at what we do as the design decisions for our HCI solution. And with that, we feel that, you know, we've sort of leapt a lot of those sorts of business challenges into something that can be deployed in the core that can support applications that require enterprise performance and scale.
So I think just going back again, you were talking about the limitations of Mode 1, and you'd used a term that was interesting to me called an HCI tax. Could you elaborate a little bit on what that actually means and how that affects the end customer? Yeah, absolutely. So in HCI today, they're mostly standard building blocks, and so if you get to a point, the standard building blocks of, you know, compute, storage, and network, and if you fill any one of those resource buckets up, you need to move to another unit of fixed configuration.
And that comes with a cost of tax of software and licensing that is applicable to that unit of scale. And that's usually in around about the 10 to 30% of cost market is what our customers are telling us. So with our design decisions, we've tried to reduce that and remove that completely, so we don't have to have this, this thing in the tail every time you run out of compute or memory or capacity. So we've addressed that with a couple of different approaches. Firstly, the guaranteed performance for your applications, and that's really talking about giving you confidence that you can consolidate all your applications onto a single core platform, and giving each one of those applications a minimum, maximum, and burst capability from a QoS performance perspective.
So just going back, I think that we're talking about enterprise scale, and there's just a question that's come through about what that means. I think just to summarize what you were saying, that the first generation of HCI were optimized for remote office or small bespoke deployments. It creates a silo. HCI now is becoming more of a mainstream technology that you were telling me before that you can see it being adopted in the core data center itself, and that drives the need for a Mode 2 type HCI technology that essentially leapfrogs, and it's not only about simplicity of management, but it's also about reliability at an enterprise scale. So you typically look at a data center that runs enterprise class availability type systems, right? You bringing HCI into the core data center, you now need to have something that is that type of reliability and scalability.
Yeah.
And so would I be summarizing your commentary correctly?
Yeah, spot on. So that really comes down to giving you the ability to be flexible about your scaling points. And I'll go into a little bit more detail when we get to the technical specifications in the next couple of slides.
Sure.
But just the last thing is really around the automation and automated capabilities of the next generation data center. And with NetApp HCI, we've actually, the holy grail of pretty much any IT organization is how do you automate standardized IT tasks and routines. So I'll show you a demonstration as we get to it around the NetApp deployment engine, which automates the stand-up of this environment, and also looking at how you actually manage it ongoing. And then once you've actually got it going, what happens and how do you integrate it into your overall orchestration architectures? And we've got all those capabilities built into NetApp HCI as well. Now, I also touched on before about data being deployed within the hybrid cloud and the public cloud. Now, as we launch the NetApp HCI later this month and the end of this year, we'll actually have the NetApp Data Fabric capabilities built into the fundamentals of NetApp HCI as well.
That's brilliant. Okay, so I think that's enough of the marketing. Let's get into what it actually looks like.
Yeah, great. Okay, so this is the bezel. Everyone loves the look of a bezel. Fantastic. So this is actually two chassis, right? So each one of these chassis are 2 rack units in height, and that's essentially your minimum scaling size. So you start with 2 chassis. Each of these chassis have 4 nodes in the back of it, and so you've got your SSDs in the front, and each of the 4 nodes at the back of each of these chassis is a half-width 1 rack unit node. Now, when we get to the nodes, we've tried to make it really simple. We have a concept of storage nodes in small, medium, or large, or compute nodes, or small, medium, and large. And you can intermix any one of these to begin with. So just to start off the HCI, you've got to have 4 storage nodes and 2 compute nodes. And that gives you an opportunity to have 2 blank nodes for scaling in the future.
So just a question. I'm trying to capture all the questions in real time. Do you start off with only smalls, or do you start off with only? Can you just talk through how you can start off and how you can scale those?
Yeah, good question. So, thanks for the questions on the chat. Really appreciate those coming in. So you can start with any combination of small, medium, or large nodes. So generally, what people do will start with 4 small storage nodes and maybe 2 medium compute nodes, but it does depend on your day 1 requirement. If your requirement is for a large amount of compute and a small amount of storage, we can cater to that. But if you have a large capacity but a small compute requirement, we can cater for that as well.
Right, and just it's interesting what you published there about 25 gigabit Ethernet networking. It's not something I've seen a lot of, but it is something that's becoming more and more pervasive in the data center. Could you talk us through what's the reason for that? Because most of the conversations I have is around 10 gigabit Ethernet.
Yeah, good question. So, well, from networking technologies have been advancing, and 40 gig has been around for a little while, but the adoption rate of 40 gig hasn't been as great as we had thought it was going to be. And a couple of reasons that customers are telling us of why is really around the optics that 40 gigabit requires in terms of the cost and the expensive componentry that is required to support that. So, as networking technologies have moved, the 25 gig has come out. It supports an SFP28, which is also supporting the SFP Plus, which is your 10 gig. So you've got, essentially Ethernet on motherboard is an economic decision to support a higher performance, but also give you backwards compatibility of 10 gig if you don't have 25 gig yet as well.
Yeah, and the other one that's interesting to me, I'm looking at this, we've got an estimate of the number of VMs supported per compute node, small, medium, and large. And I mean, one of the hallmarks of next generation data center is containers and containerized workloads. Can you talk us a little bit through why we talk about VMs when it's getting to containers in the new world?
Yeah, great question. So the reason why we've put VMs here is really just that a lot of the data center core still operates on VMs, but this is not limited to that. This HCI platform does support containerized applications, whether it's Kubernetes or Docker architectures. So we can definitely support those on day one as well.
Yeah. And so from a mix and match perspective, again, there's some questions coming in. You can start off with a small compute node and then go to a medium compute node and a large as you scale. Or are you going to cover that?
Let me just jump to that. I've actually got a slide. I'll jump into that because I think I can explain a little bit more with visual aids here.
Sure.
So this is the back of those two rack unit chassis that I talked about before. So as you can see, I've got 4 flash nodes and 2 compute nodes. And then I've got 2 open nodes available there. So that comes with the amount of performance capacity, memory, and CPU that I require for my day one requirements. Now, as my business requirements change, I might decide to add in a compute node, which means that my memory and CPU capabilities will increase. And this is really coming down to the independent scale units that we've designed into the system. We're adding in another compute node, gives us the ability to add more CPU and memory, and now we can add in another additional chassis. And this could be, for example, some large CPU compute nodes. But what we might find is, as we've added in those large compute nodes, our capacity requirements have increased as well. So all we need to do is drop in another storage node to boost up your capacity requirements.
So you're literally just picking up a node and putting it into the chassis. It then adds to the overall pool of available compute and storage. Can you talk us through, and maybe you're going to do that already, what are the limitations here in scalability? Because, again, relating this back to the Mode 1 HCI, if this is Mode 2, what are the upper limits that we can see?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so fundamentally what we've designed this platform on was as part of the SolidFire acquisition that NetApp made over a year ago. So SolidFire itself has a scale of over 100 nodes of capacity and performance. However, what we're delivering today with NetApp HCI is going to be targeted at VMware workloads. The reason we've done that is that VMware is by far still the majority within the core data center. And as most people will know, vSphere has a limitation around 32 compute nodes.
Okay. Okay. Well, so that's a bit of a technical look at it. Who is the end target for this? what are the workloads that we're looking at? You know, can you just talk us through a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure thing. So as I said, you know, vCenter is what's going to be the first management interface that we've integrated into NetApp HCI, but it doesn't stop there. So we've launched with VMware as being the management portal, but you can externally mount the storage from the HCI platform on day one to other architectures as well. So if you're running OpenStack with Cinder or KVM or Hyper-V, you can mount all those hypervisors from the NetApp HCI as well.
Right. So it's just interesting. Are you going to talk through? Okay, you are going to.
Yeah. So I was going to talk through. So you know, as we come to market, this is an enterprise design product for the core. So it comes in with, you know, highly availability replication, the standard data protection expectations that you have within the core. And because it's built on SolidFire, it comes with all the data reduction technologies such as, you know, compression, deduplication, etc. And another thing is that, you know, we're going to be integrating this. It is going to be integrated with the data fabric services. So for file offerings, so for NAS, as well as objects, additional backup recovery and replications in and out of the cloud as well. And when we actually release this product, we'll be integrating and launching with some third-party services for orchestration, for backup recovery products as well.
Yeah. Okay. And just for everyone on the chat asking questions, please bear with us as we try and get through all of this and answer your questions. So, sorry, mate, keep going. I keep interrupting you.
Yeah, that's okay. No, it's good. It's good. All right. So, HCI fits in really into the core data center. That's where we're sort of targeting this solution for true workload consolidation. And now what I mean by that is give you confidence to deploy your workloads in a method that you won't hear performance problems come up during the running of these platforms, because you give it a boundary of performance to work within. So that really tends to lead itself into, I can now run my databases on the same architecture as my end user compute architecture, as well as my, you know, development and testing architecture. So if you're wanting to run, you know, SQL or NoSQL databases day one, Oracle, MongoDB, you name it, that is all going to be supported. And also for large end user compute platforms as well.
Right. So I think it's about time that we've been going for about 20 minutes. Can we just have a look at what the console looks like? Can we do a setup?
Yeah, so let's run through. I've got a little a short video on the actual setup diagram. So this is the deployment engine of what you appear and how you run through the first time you set up NetApp HCI. Whoops, let me just go back and press play. So let's have a quick run through of that. And I'll talk through this as it goes through to give you some commentary on what actually is going on here.
So just to confirm, this is what happens when you unrack the system and power it up.
Yep.
This is the first thing you see the first time you turn it on.
Spot on. This is what you're going to see. So as soon as you rack those two nodes together, you'll fire up the IP address which is provided, and this is what you're going to get to.
Right.
So this is called a deployment engine. So the first part of it is accepting, you know, the good legal advices from the companies of NetApp and also SolidFire. But it gets to this next screen, and I want to stop here for a couple of seconds and just talk about it. So this is really looking at how we integrate the NetApp HCI into your vCenter environment. So when we're looking at most people have a vCenter running multiple clusters today. You can add the NetApp HCI infrastructure into that cluster by joining an existing vCenter, or you can create your own new vCenter if you wanted to set it up individually. Oh, sorry, let me just do that again. Apologies, people. All right. Now, we're going to create a new vCenter in this example here. And so we're going to create some credentials to log in. Now, this is going to use the same credentials because we're creating a new vCenter for the storage, compute, etc., and reuse those credentials where it needs to. You can change these credentials later on for security purposes, but this is just to get it going. All right. So really the most complex screen is probably this networking screen. And you'll see that as we type in here, there's some alerts popping up in the top right-hand corner of whether it's an invalid IP address or an invalid NTP server. And this is really trying to limit the challenges and mistakes that people get by importing the wrong IP addresses when they're trying to create these things. So it goes off and tests whether or not these IP addresses are real, is it already taken, is it not a valid IP address, etc. Pretty simple sort of stuff. Now this is for the 1 gig management ports, and then once we've done that, we'll actually import the IP addresses for the 10 gig SCSI connection. Now this is, I'll just pause it there. This is just the basic settings, and as you'll see, we'll click further through here. If you don't want to go with this basic setup, there's an advanced settings button at the top which allows you to be more descriptive around your IP address ranges, your subnets and your VLANs, etc. So we'll just show you a little bit of a view on what that looks like here. So once you're happy with all your inputs to get the cluster up and running, you hit continue, and what will the rest of the deployment engine will go and set up the rest of the environment for you. So it'll set up the cluster, the ESX, the host, the vCenter, and the management node, and that's it.
So, referring back to your days as a software engineer before you came into the tin world, so to speak, would you say that your skill set in administration is advanced or pretty basic, or how would you rate your skill set?
Look, I'd say I'd probably be, pretty medium, I'd say, in terms of an admin. And
so from the time that you unbox this to the time it's set up, ready to go, what would you say is the turnaround time there, assuming that, you've got rack space there and power, because sometimes that becomes a bit of a challenge when you're putting in new equipment or so has been fed back to from our customers. So can you talk us through a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, sure. So the racking stacking piece, once that bit's done, running through that deployment engine, it takes about 30 minutes.
Right.
We've tried to reduce, the number of inputs from, over 400 different inputs to get this entire thing stood up down to about 30 inputs that you saw in that demo just there.
Right. And I think that really simplicity of setup and management is a benchmark, right? And I think if we're going anywhere past 30 minutes, then we're really missing the mark on the simplicity angle of HCI. But you've talked about the setup. Can you talk through the management piece of it? Can you show us a little bit through how it would be managed?
Yeah, good question. I've heard the analogy is that, setting up a system is not like setting up a tent. You don't do it that often.
Yeah, that's right.
So it comes into the next, what does day one and onwards management look like? So that's where we've done a lot of work of integrating all the management directly into where most people will be operating and deploying and provisioning all the environments. So that's within the VMware vCenter. So, from within that area, you can provision data stores and volumes, look at any reporting, efficiencies, manage your accounts, etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into a live demo and show you through what this actually looks like, and hopefully this comes through pretty clearly. Can you see the screen?
No worries. Let me just wait for that to refresh so everyone can see it. Yes.
Great. Okay.
Go ahead.
Let me just go back one step and show you where we've come from. So what I've done here is I've logged into the vSphere web client, which is pretty standard, and launched the SolidFire management, which will be the NetApp HCI management plugin. Now, once this loads, you can see I've got an overview of my environment, of what I've got in terms of capacity, and when this launches, it will also have the compute areas in there as well. You can see I can check out event logs and alerts and any additional running tasks. Now, one thing to note here is when NetApp HCI has been designed to be fully managed from within vSphere, and that means also all of the alerts and alarms that come from the hardware as well as the software will be visible within the NetApp vSphere client. So wherever you have your alarms popping up, any alerts and alarms will actually be appearing directly in there. So you won't need to move from any other management screen other than vSphere. All right, so let's have a bit of a look around to see what we can do. This is just cluster overview details, but we're actually getting into deployment and actually doing something within the vSphere client. So as you can see, I've launched into the management of my storage, and you can see I can create data stores, I can modify my accounts and volumes. Now let's do a deployment here and show you what we've actually integrated. So if we create a new volume, we're going to create a new Geek Out volume for SQL. This might be a 20 gigabyte volume. I add it to my SQL account. And you can see here on screen the quality of service opportunities where I can input what I want this volume to perform at. So this gives me the opportunity to change what my minimum, my maximum, and my burst capabilities are going to be. So I might say that this volume can have minimum of 5,000 IOs, a maximum of 10, and if it needs to burst it up to 15,000. So if I just hit OK, that's going to go and deploy that volume on the actual cluster, and now I can actually see that it's actually deployed, got my 20 gigabyte size, and then you can actually see here that I can initiate any modifications to it. So data protection is integrated into this screen. I can click the details of this existing volumes, this volume I've just created. You can also see, I can see efficiency, my performance metrics, nothing, so I've just created, nothing's actually performing, but you can see all that sort of inputs from there. Also, from a data protection screen, you can create data protection schedules for snapshots and mirrors, and also any vVols that you might want to create there as well.
Just on, sorry, my voice is leaving me. Could you just, I mean, with vVols, what is your opinion on vVols? It's something that VMware talk about quite frequently. Have you seen a lot of adoption there, and do we have a preference around what we would like customers to do?
Yeah, good question. So, you know, vVols have been around for a little while and they're maturing. Now, what we're seeing is there hasn't been a huge adoption inside of the data center of vVols yet. Now, we do support vVols in combination with the traditional data stores on the NetApp HCI from day one. So if you're comfortable with data stores and don't want to move to vVols, or you want to try vVols out, in either way, you can do that with HCI and NetApp HCI, and that will work. So yeah, it's all there, it's working. The major benefits that you will get out of using NetApp HCI and vVols is really around that individual virtual machine performance, quality of service.
Right, okay. And I think that one question that's come up is pretty quick to answer on the call is regarding faults. So the objective is that all faults, hardware and software, are visible from the logs here, right? Yeah,
that's right. So you'll see alerts and things pop up into the alerts alarms here. You can see actually I've got one pop up, which is actually just a standard vSphere one. But all of the hardware node faults will actually appear in this screen here as well. And so you can just monitor those alerts and make activities from within this screen.
Yep, no problems. And guys, again, apologies. There's just more questions here than we were able to answer in a quick amount of time. I'll just ask on the phone because it's been asked a couple of times. Just going back to support for hypervisors,
yep.
The first release is with VMware.
Yeah, good question.
And, yep. Yeah, could you just reiterate that?
Yeah, so vSphere 6.0 will be our first supported release, quickly followed by 6.5.
Right.
So we're not talking very long after that. We just need to go through a final testing phase.
Right.
Now, as you saw, we just created a volume that I mounted. I can actually mount that volume that I created here to an external access group that can be OpenStack, Hyper-V, KVM hypervisors as well.
Right, no problem. Just I'm hoping everyone can still hear us. Just been told that we've lost audio. Just give a sec, guys. Okay, great. We've got back audio. Sorry about that, Justin. And then the other question really is about scalability in terms of storage and compute. It's you don't have to have a storage and a compute as you scale up. Sorry, I should say scale out. Can you just confirm that for us?
Yeah, good question. So when we're looking at the scale units, it's really around independent scaling. So the NetApp HCI has been designed that you scale either your storage or compute in different nodes. So that independent scaling gives you a lot of opportunity to buy what you need when you need it. And rather than having, wasted capacity or wasted CPU in your environment, you can deploy what's required for that point in time.
Right. Okay. And in terms of, sorry, did I actually interrupt what you were going through, or did you?
Yeah. So I was just going through the demo here and looking at showing you what you can actually achieve out of this screen here. So once you're actually inside of that vSphere plugin, you can manage your accounts for any of your applications that you want to create. I've talked about managing your vVols, so I won't go into that in detail, but here's where you can manage the cluster as well. So this will be where the NetApp HCI cluster nodes will be managed, where you can add in additional nodes or capacity or add nodes and monitor the components in that area.
Okay. Can we just pause the demo just for a moment, because there are a couple of extra questions here around scalability, and we might have to take some of this offline. There's definitely some very in-depth questions coming through, and to be perfectly honest, I think we'll need to get some SolidFire HCI engineers here to actually answer those questions. But again, regarding scaling, if you start off with a small system, can you change that to a medium system? And I believe the answer is yes. The other question that's come through regarding scaling of storage, could you just, again, for the audience, reiterate what the scalability limits are from a storage perspective?
Yeah, certainly. So when you start scaling, so storage in a NetApp HCI world appears as a big pool of capacity and performance.
Right.
So day one, when you start with those 4 nodes that I talked about and add an additional node, that just adds to the pool. So within that pool of capacity and performance, if you add in a large to your existing pool, it'll grow with capacity and performance. And so your scaling nodes there are really looking based on the SolidFire architecture, right? So we can scale up to 100 nodes of capacity. But most people probably won't get to that, right? That's very, very large numbers of capacity, but we might in the future, which is excellent within the architecture. And you can add whatever size capacity or performance you need at that point in time.
Right. Okay. The other question is just regarding the GUI. Is the GUI the SolidFire GUI, or is it a newly developed GUI for the HCI system?
So all of the HCI management will be day one will be vSphere. Right. Will all be done within vSphere.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So again, back to that commentary that you made before about being able to manage everything from a single console.
Yeah.
And that's the VMware console.
We've tried to limit the number of management screens that you have to deal with within the data center. And so if you're spending the bulk of your time within vSphere today to manage your applications, your virtual machines, etc., then that makes sense to put a lot of that work in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And there are still some outstanding questions here, Justin, but just for the audience, I think I do need to get some engineers just to give us an accurate answer. So to those of you who I haven't actually had a chance to respond, I will come back to you via email, or we'll just give you a call and answer those questions. So apologies, we weren't able to answer them all today. Sorry, keep going. I stopped you from your demo. Did you want to finish off?
No, I think that's pretty much it from a demonstration perspective. As you can see, it's pretty simple to go and create VLANs and create management tasks and etc. But I think that this is, the day one, the area where you'll do a lot of work. As you move forward into integrating this into your rest of your orchestration area, we'll actually be releasing VRO templates as well for VMware vRealize Orchestrator. And that will allow you to really operate like a cloud inside your data center, so your end users can then consume the resources that you've provided to them.
Yeah, brilliant. So we're really we're going to wrap up shortly. anything else that you feel that we needed to cover just to give everyone a taste of what this offering is all about?
Yeah, look, we're really excited to be looking at what we're doing and offering this solution, because a lot of our customers are asking us, when are you guys going to bring a solution out to address this stuff? So we're really excited that we're bringing it out, and we're looking forward to releasing it. So I think in terms of timing for the release...
yeah, so the timing is, as I understand it, is we've got some units that will be shipping, well, I should start again. The units will be shipping officially towards the end of October, but we're able to talk about these systems and show some more in-depth demonstrations pretty much straight away. So,
yep.
So that's pretty good. I guess the question would be, how can we organise a demo? So could you just talk us through how?
Yeah, spot on. Okay, so in terms of getting more information about NetApp HCI, we've actually got the NetApp Insight 2017 coming up, where there's going to be a lot of talk about NetApp HCI. So if you've got the opportunity to come to NetApp Insight in October, there's one in Vegas, or in November in Berlin. Reach out to your NetApp counterpart. We've actually got a lot of packages that we can help convince your manager to come to an event like this. But you can also reach out to your local partner or NetApp account manager to give you access to either a demo or for more information about the NetApp HCI. You can also reach out to me on Twitter at SecretGeorge as well.
That's brilliant. I think that's pretty much it. We try and get these things wrapped up by about 20 to 12 so that we can let everyone get back to their day. Justin, I really appreciate you spending some time and talking through what the next generation data center is, what our HCI offering is, and why it's differentiated in the market. And I definitely appreciate the time you spent answering questions and doing a bit of a demo.
Fantastic. Thanks for your time, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great day, and talk to you soon. Hopefully we see you at Insight.